Welcome to part two of disaster planning part two. We are going to talk about structuring and creating the plan. So on a video like this, it's going to be really hard to explain some of the nuances of creating a plan. So we suggest you go check out some of the resources we have out there for you, such as our book, Seriously Now What? A Small Business Guide to Disaster Preparedness. We also have a link to a blog series that Julie wrote on the art of planning, and it should have everything that you need in there. A lot of those little details that we're not going to be able to explain in a video. Or through just a handful of PDFs that are going to be out there for you. So it's definitely more complicated than just talking somebody through it, but it's up to you in terms of how complicated you want your plan to be. So as we've already mentioned, you want to include as many people from your team as necessary to ensure you've covered all your bases. You don't want too many chefs in the kitchen, but you also don't want to accidentally miss something, forget something, realize that you don't know every little small piece of your business, and so having more people review it is helpful. You can have people help create it, but reviewing is really like where the help comes in creating that plan. So the structure of the plan really depends upon what you're comfortable with. It can be super complex, and you can use an expensive program such as Microsoft Project to create the plan, or you can just create a checklist in Excel. It's up to you. But before we go anywhere else with this creation of a plan, you just need to make sure that you know what tool you're using. So go ahead and figure out that right now before we move on, and then we can go on and create the plan. Most importantly, when it comes to the tool that you're using, you need to know, you just need to be comfortable with working with it and in it, and then using it to execute. So if you've got this super expensive, complex tool to create and execute plans, it's no good if nobody knows how to use it or if they're not good at using it. So like really go to like the lowest common denominator there, and determine what's going to be the best tool for you in terms of your comfort level, your knowledge, your ability to execute from it. You're going to want to think in terms of start and end dates and times when you start creating this plan. So it's obviously impossible to determine a start date when something hasn't happened, but what we're going to do is we're going to just have that listed as day zero or something like that. Like this is when the plan starts. So when an event happens, when you decide to initiate that growth plan, whenever you need to use that plan, that's going to be day zero, and everything else is going to be based upon that. For your goals, you're going to want to list how long it's going to take to reach them. So you should be able to figure this out. There's going to be obviously some unknowns in there because let's say we're talking disaster plan, we don't know what the extent of the problem is. It could be pretty simple. Like the problem could be the same problem. One could be really simple. One could be very complex. It depends. You're not going to know that, but we're going to start filling in some dates and times in terms of the goals. Not dates, but like times, time frames to reach that goal. So you want to keep it realistic and manageable. If you don't know, that's fine. Just go ahead and make an estimate, put in some sort of filler. Not all goals are going to take the same amount of time, and some are going to be dependent upon others. So you can't complete one goal until you finish this one. Some run concurrently. So just kind of think about that when you start listing out goals, which we're going to call milestones in a little bit. You're also going to need some communication tasks in there. And these are somewhat independent of the plan, as they may or may not need to occur in order for you to be successful. And they might not need to happen at all. You might need to add to it. It really depends, again, on the situation and who you're communicating to. Some of your communications are going to be external for customers, for vendors, for people who are going to help with whatever it is that you're doing. And some are going to be internal. So this is going to be with your staff, with whoever it is that's helping you execute the plan on the inside, from the business. Some are going to be necessary in order for success. Some aren't. And you should probably list that, because it's going to be good to know that if you need to skip something, you can skip the things that aren't necessary versus the ones that absolutely have to happen. You're going to need to know when certain things in the plan are complete. So this is going to be a part of that communication strategy. So when a person completes a task, you need to have that plan built out so that they contact you or whoever's running the plan. They know that something's complete and the next thing can start. So those handoffs are critical in executing a plan. And you're going to want to create the communications for customers, like I said, who may be affected. Creating these ahead of time, at least having a plan to create them ahead of time, is good, just so that when, if and when something happens, you can kind of be ahead of that. You can have your customer service team, your sales team, whoever it is, craft those plans, and they already kind of know they have the framework for what the plan should look like, or the communication should look like. You should communicate with your local emergency services. So fire, EMT, police department. Start talking to them now. Let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it. A lot of them will be happy to give you free advice and or training, because it's beneficial to them. If you are able to take care of yourself during some sort of emergency, that's one less business, one less person, one less group of people who they need to worry about immediately. Yes, they can eventually get to you, but if they know that you can take care of yourself, that just kind of eases their workload just a bit, so they can focus on those people that really need it. And then you want to also think of people outside of your business who you wouldn't want to contact, but isn't aren't necessarily the first people you're going to think about. So, for instance, your insurance agent during any disaster, you want them on speed dial, because they can be extremely helpful in terms of getting you money and resources you need to make yourself whole. Your attorney, vendors, local officials, even the media. I mean, literally anybody outside of your business. Think about the people who you would want to contact in order to improve upon your plan, make things go easier, just make yourself look better, get back to normal, whatever it is. And then make sure that you're going to write out that plan for the communication. The messages may change, but the who and when, that's the important part of that communication strategy. And then the last thing that you're going to list out before we get into the next part, which is going to be in week 30, is you're going to list out everything in your plan that you can live without. So this is about your plan. And so think about the things that may happen along the way, a goal that may be missed, or something that you can't really account for now. So back to like a communication strategy. If some sort of disaster hits, you might be okay with a lack of customer communications, because everybody is well aware of the fact that, your power's out because a hurricane came through. You don't necessarily need to send that communication out if all of your customers are local. If they're global, they'll probably need to know that. So you need to kind of balance that, that based upon who your customers are and what communications they might need. And what this list of everything that you can live without is, it's really like, if you want to think about it, it's more of like a list of nice to haves. And it's things that would be really awesome if you could have all of these things in your plan, and if all of this could be a part of your execution. But if it doesn't happen, it's not gonna ruin you. It's not gonna be the end of the world. So that's the last thing you need to think about when it comes to creating a plan. And like I said, week 10 was the intro, and weeks 30 and 40 will complete this series.